be cross-trained.
Ay, 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 ay. And it starts.
Okay.
Today we're doing an interview for the Veterans History Project. With us today we have Victor Dutchick, who lives at 11154 Alice Court, Sterling Heights, 48314.
Correct.
And I'm the interviewer, Sam Mosseri, and Judy Mutzi is running the video equipment. We are at St. Cletus Catholic Church, Ryan Road, in Warren, Michigan, under the auspices of Catholic Services. Okay, Victor. Give us some of your background. Were you enlisted, or did you, well, first of all, you're...
No, I did not enlist because I was an aeronautical engineer working in designing airplanes, and of course, during the war, you know, that was a big thing. I worked for Curtis Wright, I don't know if you remember that name, and I was working for them. And so I got deferment after deferment after deferment because of my aeronautical experience and education. And so it wasn't until 22 years old that I finally got drafted. All those years I was getting, you know, every 6 months I'd get a draft notice, and I'd get a 6-month deferment, but finally when I became about 22, they said, you're going to the service no matter what. So I was finally drafted. But now I had given up all my opportunities to sign up as a, I wanted to be a pilot, okay? But I got married around 21, and my wife, every time I said I'll join the service and become a pilot, she would go in tears. And so I stalled it until finally I got drafted, and I said, well, there's nothing I can do now. I could have joined the Air Force and been a pilot, but now I'm drafted and I'm in the Army, so that was it. So that's how I got in the Army.
Where did you serve?
Over in Europe. I fought through Germany. I didn't go into the early day landings on the beaches of Europe, but I was there about the 4th or 5th day. So we had already had a beachhead, but then I fought all my way through France and Germany and Belgium. Yeah.
You were in the Army?
I was in the Army, yeah. And I was just a low man, private first class. You know, if I had joined like I wanted to, but my wife would go in tears every time I thought about joining. And so I stalled and stalled. And I was 22 before I went in. All my buddies that were 19 and 20 years old, they were gone by then. But as an aeronautical engineer, I was getting all these deferments, so it kept me out.
Where did you do your boot camp?
Where did I do what?
Boot camp. Training.
Boot camp? Oh, that was down Camp Campbell, Kentucky.
What was it like there?
That's all right, yeah. So.
And where'd you go from there?
Well, after that, we went right over to Europe. You know, you didn't. You went your 4 months or 6 months, whatever it was, the basic training, and right then they needed people over in Europe, so we were all sent right over there. And like I said, I wasn't in on the original 2 or 3 day at the beachhead, but within a week I was there in Europe fighting, and I walked all the way up into Germany, and that's where I ended up. In fact, I was about 40 or 50 miles from Berlin. We were about the closest division to Berlin when the war ended. So,
Did you saw combat?
Oh, yeah. I'm lucky to be sitting here talking to you. Absolutely, there's no question about it.
What was it like?
Well, it's scary, you know. No, some days, you know, it was nothing, but other days you got to go into battles. And now we were on the offensive. Now we were on the offensive, so we were pushing German back, and so every day it was. Well, I shouldn't say every day. Some days it was easy, although there's shelling going on all the time. But some days you didn't. But one evening or so, tomorrow we're going to attack the Germans, and had to be prepared for them. And then that's when you had to be scared, because if 50 of you went up in your outfit, there'd be 10 or 20 of them are wounded before the day is up. There's no question about that. And there's other easy days that nothing happened. You know, you just sit there and eat your rations and stuff like that. So.
Were you able to sleep at night?
Huh?
Were you able to sleep at night?
Well, you rolled up in whatever you had. You didn't put your pajamas on or anything like that. No.
Yeah.
You're down in somebody's basement. That was usually what it was. You just take over people's houses and kick them out. Yeah, that was a bad thing. Looking back on it, you feel sorry for the people, but that's what we just took over their houses, and they had to find places to live. And you know, because I really hardly ever was I really like in a trench. We were fought from city to city is what we did. Yeah. You see these pictures of World War II in the trenches or that. We had nothing like that. This was all mobile. You know, we had by this time World War II, we had transportation and everything. So.
The war was winding down by then.
Huh?
The war was winding down by then?
Oh no, I was on I told you it was in the first, not the very first week, but I would say the second week I was on the invasion of Europe. Yeah. So the war wasn't winding down. I fought all the way through Europe.
What year was this?
That was that would have been 1941, right around there. Yeah.
You mentioned you were wounded. Where?
Huh?
Where were you when you were wounded? You said you were wounded.
No, I didn't say I was wounded. No, I did not say that.
Oh.
I wasn't.
You said something about shrapnel?
Oh yeah, I said a piece of shrapnel.
Oh,
That
okay.
I said that was the closest thing I had.
Okay.
It was at winter time. We had heavy jackets on and everything, and we were eating our rations that evening, whatever it was we had. And you didn't go down to a hall or anything and eat. You just had whatever they gave you in a box of cereal, you know, so the guy says, "What's that hole in there?" And I looked at my jacket. It was a heavy jacket now, and it was just all ripped up. And so a piece of shrapnel had gone through it. There was no question about that.
Did you get any citations at all?
Just the normal things, nothing special. No.
What are the normal things?
Oh, just like you get your, for your private first class, and you get something for this battle and for that battle. And I forget the details of it, but I had no citations of any sort.
Yeah. How long were you in there?
2 full years. 2 full years.
Then you were discharged?
Huh?
Then
I was discharged, yes.
Was there anything, how did you guys entertain yourselves?
How did I do?
How did you entertain yourselves?
Well, if things slowed down, then they would have entertainment, but otherwise there was no entertainment, on the front lines. God almighty, you were worried every time you were going to get hit with a bullet or shrapnel. Well, it was shrapnel really, that, a bomb explodes and all that shrapnel goes around. And so that's what scared you, all those bombings and shells and things like that. Yes, getting shot by a real bullet, that wasn't really a danger. It was the explosions that were going on around all the time.
Primarily from bombs?
Well, shelling,
Yeah.
we're shelling them, they're shelling us, and
Was there any humorous?
Huh?
Any humor in this? Did you guys?
How could you see any humor in that? No.
You got to have some laughs over something.
Well, I guess we had jokes and that we told, to each other every evening that over our box of candy, or not box of candy, but box of food that we had. And that's why I say they were these C rations or K rations, whatever they called them. So.
How were the officers?
Huh?
How were the officers?
My officers were fine. I don't know, maybe some people had bad officers, but I always got along with my officers.
Did you stay in touch with any of the guys from from the war?
Oh, sure, for a few years, but I don't know him anymore. Yeah, but after the war, yeah, we kept in contact. Yeah.
You always had plenty of supplies?
Huh?
Plenty of supplies?
Not, you say always? No. No, not when you're on the front lines. You don't always have plenty of supplies. I would say I don't ever recall running out of ammunition, but short on food and things like that, yes, absolutely.
What'd you do before you went, you were an aeronautical
I was an
engineer.
aeronautical engineer. I designed airplanes at Curtiss Wright.
Did you go back to that after you got out?
During the war, I came up to General Motors, and I'm still there. And I went up to GM because they were automobile designers, as you know. But during the war, they got an airplane program, and they were looking for aeronautical engineers. And us guys that had some experience in education, God, they picked us up just like, in fact, they doubled our salary. Whatever I was making at Curtiss Wright, they said twice as much. Just like that, twice as much.
Twice as much?
But they didn't pay my expenses that come up here or motel me or anything. That was all my own. They doubled my salary, but you're on your own now to get up
Now,
here.
you said to come up here. Where were you coming from?
Well, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I live. So,
Okay.
and back during the war, that's where I was living in the St. Louis area.
Now, it says you have some hobbies. Woodworking, photography.
What's that?
You have some hobbies?
Oh yeah, I was quite a photographer. Yeah, but I'm not a professional amateur photographer. I've taken pictures all my life. From the day, I would say from the day I met my wife, I've got pictures. God, I got books and books and books and books of pictures. Yeah, yeah. And she knows.
Any other hobbies?
Well, I'm a golfer. Yeah, I'm a golfer, and I got a swimming pool in my backyard, an in-ground pool, not a tank job. I put in-ground pool in my backyard, and I golfed, and I bowled in the wintertime. I had a bowling leagues at work and things like that.
So you're quite active.
Well, I kept myself going. So did my wife. My wife was always very busy. She wasn't a homebody. She was always on the go. Both of us.
That's what keeps you young.
Oh yeah.
Well, it says your wife passed away recently?
Yeah, about a year ago. Yeah. No. So I've been by myself about a year now. And I was living at home until about a month ago, and my kids thought I ought to go to a assisted living place, and that's what I'm in now, where they give me two meals a day. At breakfast, you're on your own cereal and grapefruit and things like that. But they have lunch at 11 and dinner at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
They have all kinds of activities to keep you busy?
Oh yeah, all day long.
Yeah.
It starts
There's
about.
water there if you need it.
Okay, that's activities start about 9 in the morning, and they'll have a couple of things in the morning and a couple more in the afternoon, and then a couple more after dinner in the evening. So there's always something to go to if you want to. I don't spend 100% of my time, but there's things I say, gee, that sounds interesting, and I'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about the war?
Well, just how scary it was being shot at by real bullets. And after the war now, it got interesting because after the war was over with, they tried to do the best they could under the circumstances of leaving us see Europe. So I've been to I have fought through Germany. That's where I really fought. But I've been to Italy and Switzerland and along there and all that, because they gave us, after the war is over with now I'm talking about, they gave us best opportunity they could under the circumstances to let us go and see parts of Europe. So we were able to, every once in a while they'd have some kind of a trip going somewhere, and if you wanted to sign up for it, you did. And I was always interested in seeing things, so I signed up for things.
What part of Europe did you see?
Well, I've been all through Germany, France, Belgium, all over Europe. I haven't been into Russia. I've been to Czechoslovakia, and all around the Mediterranean Sea. I've been all over. Yeah, I'm a traveler.
I guess.
Yeah. Some of it was service, some of it on my own. And of course, I ended up with a fairly decent job, in fact, a pretty good job, I guess. And later in my life, my job took me all around the country, and my job took me, I got a call from GM after I retired, and said, we got something going on over in Europe, we'd like to have somebody over there for a year. And I said, what's it about? Okay, so I said, well, you can go over there for 6 months and then come back for 3 or 4 weeks. And oh no, I don't want to do that. I says, I'll go over there for 3 weeks and come back a week, and over there 3 weeks. And then if I want to take my wife over, you pay her airfare and everything, and I'll go over. So the guy I was talking to, he said, well, I can't do that, but he said, I'll tell him what you told. So he called me the next day. He said, come on in. They agreed to anything you want. They want you over in Europe. So I said, okay. So I went over to Europe.
How sweet it is.
And
Yeah. What did you do there?
well, I'm an aeronautical engineer, but now after the war, of course, aeronautics was on the way down, and I was working for GM, and they hired me in as an aeronautical engineer. And after I come out of service, now I'm only back about a month, and they called me in the office, and Mr. Dutchick, we're sorry, but you're an aeronautical engineer, and we're back in the automobile business, so we're going to have to lay you off. And I said, you're not going to lay me off. He said, we can lay off anybody you want. I said, you mean you tell me the gentleman doesn't know what the rules are about this? Serviceman, or they guaranteed their job back for their seniority. In other words, I was by this time I was GM with maybe 4 or 5 years. Okay, so I said, you lay anybody off that you hired that's got less than 5 years. You lay all those people off, and then you can lay me off. And the guy I'm talking to, you kidding? And I said, no, that's the truth. So he said, well, I better stop this right now. And he said, you go back up and go back to work. And so I did, and I got called back down the next day, and they says, they said, you're right. You're the first guy that and I wasn't the first one they tried to lay off that day. They had, after the war, of course, they had more people than they wanted, and they had a big layoff and several hundred people, so I wasn't just the guy they picked on. And so they had to go back and review everything, and they had to go by seniority. Not your wages, not your ability, they had to go by seniority. And so my seniority by that time, and my seniority in the service accounted, so that had built up. I was with GM for 6 years or so by that time. So they had to lay off everybody that was under 6 years. Now that wasn't all of GM, that was my particular department, and other departments would be laid out the same way. So they chose not to do that, but because of my fact that I went into General Motors, an automobile company, as an engineer to design airplanes, I had a very high level, okay, because of my degree and everything. And so, and that's why they laid me off when they came back. I didn't have automobile experience, I had airplane experience, and that was the reason for the layoff. But so they had to keep me for a year, and I'm not exaggerating, 1 year to the date that year was up. Mr. Dutchick here wanted in the office, and I thought I was going to get laid off. But they apologized for what happened, but they said, my gosh, we looked at your experience, and your bosses said you were doing a good job, but my gosh, we made you, you were a senior designer in airplanes, and we made you a senior designer in automobiles, and you're one of the best we have, so we're gonna make you a leader. So that was 1 year after that all happened, they promoted me.
Cool.
So I ended up in General Motors, the assistant engineer in charge of Fisher Body, so that wasn't too bad, yeah.
Not too bad at all.
Yeah, not too bad, no.
Yeah. Why did they need you so badly in Europe?
Pardon me?
Why did they need you so badly in Europe? To
In Europe?
To be an engineer there? You said,
Well, they just needed people. That was just people, you know, amount of people in Europe that we were fighting. You know, God, you take the border of Canada and the United States, for example, but this is in Europe now, between Germany and France. That border is lined up with Germans on one side and the French on the other side. Now the French were all pushed back. In fact, and the English were over there. They were all, escaped and got on boats and went back to England. And it was only the fact that while the water was there, that Germans didn't get into England. That was the only thing that saved them, was the English Channel there. And so after the war, then with the Americans' help, the English built up, and we put on the drive and went into Germany and drove them back.
no, I mean, as an engineer,
As
when
an
General Motors sent you back, General Motors sent you to Europe.
Oh,
you got
when
out.
I went back after,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
that was because, I had a lot of experience by this time. I had done a lot of things, and so they signed a contract over in Germany with a German company to do some design work. But they wanted somebody like me that was higher up that could control what was being done. I didn't do the design work, but I controlled what was being done, so that's why they sent me over there.
Where in Europe?
Oh, I was in Belgium first, and then I didn't end up in Germany. It was basically Belgium, yeah, that's where I was, yeah.
Now, Belgium was bombed during the war, wasn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Couldn't have been much luck
Very
in that
much,
country.
Well, the big cities, the countryside's all right, but the big cities, yeah. They go after, factories and
Yeah,
things like that, so.
Well, then that was you were working on a factory?
Well, I was an engineer, so I didn't work in the I'd be out in the factories, but I didn't work in the factory.
Right.
I worked like General Motors, I worked down on the boulevard at first, and then they moved out to Sterling Heights out there on 12 Mile Road. I ended up out there.
Are you fully retired now?
Oh, sure. I'm almost 90 years old.
Wow.
But I retired at 65. But I wasn't home a month, and Vic, can you come back? And I'll come back and talk to you. They wanted to hire me back as a contract type of thing, not an employee anymore because I'm retired. I said, hey, my God, it was in the spring. I said, I never had a summer off for, God, how many years? I don't know. So I said, I'm going to take the summer off. And I said, you call me in September, October. So I didn't know if they would, but lo and behold, come September, October, they gave me a call. Vicki, you said we could call you in this fall, and why don't you come in and talk to us? And so I went in and talked to them. And that's where they wanted me to go over in Europe again and follow a program over there. And that's where, go over there for 6 months and come, oh, no way will I do that. I said, that's why I just, so I said, I won't do that, but I'll go over there if you want me to. But I said, I want to go back and forth. I'll go over there for 3 weeks and back home a week, or go over there a month and come over, something like that. So the guy I talked to, he said he couldn't do that, but he talked to the boss, so he came back. They said, whatever I want, that's okay by them. So we set up a situation, and so I went over there, and then I even had it agreed that I'd like to have my wife come over to Europe, and you pay her expenses over there, and pay her, food and housing and everything. And sure, that's all right. So they did that, and so I had my wife come over there for a month or two and spend it with me. So,
And how long did you do that?
Well, I officially retired at 65, and then I worked for General Motors until I was 72. I could have worked longer, I know, but the last call they gave me, I was about 72 years old. And I said, hey, get somebody else. I said, I'm 72 years old now. I'm going to fully retire. So I finally retired.
Mhm.
But my retirement after 65 was, I worked for 6 or 7 months on a program, and that was over with, so I'd go home for a while, and then I'd get another call. We got another hot spot going on. It was always troubles. A hot spot that's what I got sent into. Something isn't building right, you gotta go over and get them straightened out, and that's what I would do.
Now, how would you describe a hotspot?
Well, we designed the cars here in Detroit, okay? But you're building them all over the United States, and even over in Europe we're building our cars. And so they're having a problem over in Europe. And they said, my gosh, you designers over in Detroit, you don't know what you're doing, So Vic, you better go over and see what their problem is. And I'd go over there and I said, well, temporarily we can do this and for about a month or so until we get our tools changed. We're gonna have to put up with this, and you'll just have to hand work the parts. If you have to bend something over, or if you have to drill a hole for something, you'll have to do that until I get the tools changed. So that's what it was.
Were they always big projects?
Yeah, I would say they were pretty big, yes.
They were serious enough to stop production?
Well, you don't want to stop production, but so you do something by hand temporarily. Like if there should have been a hole here to put a screw in, and we didn't have a punch that puts that hole in there, we'd have a man hand drill that hole for a while, okay? So maybe that'd go on for 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks until we got a tool change to put the hole in there. So when the part came in, that hole was there. You didn't have to drill a hole. Or maybe you have to bend a flange to make it fit properly until I could get the tools changed to get the flange right. So you just had to correct little things like that.
No, you had to design the tool?
Well, I was a designer, yeah, sure. I was an assistant chief engineer. Yeah.
So you designed the tool to correct the mistake?
I wasn't a tool designer. I was a body designer. I was the guy. Styling styles the car. They call us over to have to build a car. Can you build this model of clay? And you look at the clay and we can't build that thing. And what do we have to do? Well, you have to soften this, you have to take care of that, you have to do this. And I'm the guy that they would call and say, and now I'm not talking in the beginning, I'm talking in maybe the last 15, 20 years when I'm a pioneer. And so I'm the guy. And then I don't have enough knowledge to get into the tooling detail. So I said, that's a die problem, I'll get a die engineer over here, or it's a production problem, I'll get a production engineer over here, or whatever I had to do. But I had the ability to get the right people to come over to look at the problem and let's get it settled, okay? But I was the guy that if we made a settlement that something had to be done by hand, drill a hole, bend a flange, or do something like that, I'm the guy that okayed that, okay? In a group, we would decide what's the best way out of this problem, and we'd come up with a solution, and we'd all agree, well, that's the thing to do. Then I was the fella that had the responsibility to get it done, okay?
So you were the final word?
Well, in a certain area, not the whole car. I had what they call the roof panels, the back windows, the rear end, and the deck lids, and where the taillights are. I had all of that. But all of that I was in control of.
Sounds interesting.
And I was the guy to control the making of the roof panel, the back window, all the trunk and everything, and the deck lid, the trunk lid. That was all under my responsibility when I retired.
So the designers did the clay model for what they wanted,
Oh, the designers, yeah,
And
sure.
then a lot of it obviously wasn't practical.
Oh, yeah, well, the first, when you go over and look at the first clay model that the designers wanted, you know, you knew, and they knew that you'd come over and that you can't do that, we can't make that, you know. So you know, if they got a sharp corner, well, you can't have a sharp corner, we have to round that off because we can't make those sharp corners like that. So I would go over to, you know, I was a guy, from the time I was maybe about 50 years old. I was a guy that styling would call, if it was my car. Now, there was other guys like me on other cars, you know. At GM, we were assigned a certain car. I like to have A bodies, B bodies, C bodies, and so on. So maybe I had the A body, well, that was my responsibility. But there'd be another guy just like me on the B body, and there'd be another one on the C body.
So what's the difference between A, B, and C?
Well, one would be like a Chevrolet, another one would be a Buick, and another one would be a Cadillac. So you can see A, B, and C's in Chevrolet, Pontiac, and Buick, and Cadillac. You can see the steps up in there.
Interesting. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think I already told you for 7 years they kept calling me back, so I guess I was all right.
I guess so.
Yeah. 'Cause I didn't retire until I was about 72 years old. And then the last, I would say the last, after I was 65, half of my things was traveling around the country or even all over to Europe. And it was really chasing that problems down. They couldn't build something. And Vic, you better go out and see what the heck is wrong. That's what I was doing. I was a troubleshooter. Yeah. And I was, excuse me, I was up high enough that I could call die engineering, I could call production engineering, or call shipping, or whatever I needed. Hey, you guys better come over, we got a problem, and I need your help, and I think I know what I want to do, but you have to agree with me because you're going to have to do the building and everything. I don't build it, I just control it, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, it looks like we've covered all the bases here.
okay. Now, what are you going to do with this information now?
Well, somebody's gonna transcribe it into writing.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking a video,
Mm-hmm.
and you will get a copy of the video
Okay.
and a copy of the transcript.
Uh-huh.
And then the whole package goes to Washington DC and goes in the archives.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Oh, I'll be in the
yeah,
archives.
that's right.
Wow.
It'd make you more famous.
Now, how did you get my name to do all
I
that?
have no idea. Nope. I guess your daughter.
You did that?
That was in the Roman Observer, I think.
Oh, some paperwork I got and I filled
Yeah,
out.
and I filled it out and brought it to you, and
Oh.
you signed it, and you sent it in.
Sam?
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
Can we find out what division and unit he was in?
Oh, yeah, what division were you in?
35th Division.
Okay, in the unit?
The unit, it was infantry. Yeah, I
Okay.
was in the infantry, 35th Division.
Mhm.
Company C.
Company C.
Yeah.
And they do wasn't there a song, Company C?
No, they didn't. They didn't write a song about me, or they didn't write any stories about me. I didn't do anything special, but I did do things special but everybody else did the same type of thing, you know. And I was shot at by real bullets, and I'm lucky to be here. And I would say within the first couple of weeks, I won't say half the guys were gone, but you know, maybe a quarter of them were wounded. They weren't necessarily dead, but they got hit in the arm or somewhere, and they were in the hospital. So, and like I said, the closest thing I said, and it was heavy winter clothes, and my shoulder, my coat was all torn up. Something, a piece of shrapnel. You know, it was shrapnel basically, not a full bullet that's shot at you. It's an explosion and a piece of shrapnel went through my shoulder. It didn't touch my skin because I didn't know it was there until we're eating our rations that evening. The guy said, "What happened to your jacket?" I said, "I don't know." It wasn't until then I realized my jacket was all torn up.
You didn't even bleed.
Huh?
No blood.
No, So that's my story.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. But I can say I'm lucky to be here to talk to you,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, a lot of the men didn't come back.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. We know that.
Mhm. Did you weren't part of the Normandy invasion?
Huh?
You were not,
No, I was about, I would say at least a week after the original invasion. But it was early, but I was about a week later, so I didn't go into the boats that you see landing and fighting your way in. No, I didn't do that. By that time, we had a beachhead established. But then, from the beachhead, I was in the rest of it, pushing the Germans back to their own Germany, where they belonged. And finally, they agreed to surrender and give up, so, yeah. But I fought all my way through Belgium and France, it was, yeah.
did you get anywhere near some of those camps that the?
Prisoner of war camps, you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah, a lot of them, yeah. Because we were taking German prisoners like crazy, and then even as we got into Germany, we were getting our own people freed from the camps that they had set up, yeah. Oh, yeah, I was in all of that.
Did you see any of the concentration camps?
No, I wasn't involved in any of that, yeah. But I am a guy that was shot out by real bullets over in Germany, yeah.
That's your claim to fame.
Yeah, well, God was with me, I
That's right,
guess.
that's right.
Yeah.
You're very lucky.